to order.
Okay. I'll call the meeting to order at 11:01. Any corrections to the June 1st minutes?
Nope.
Any recommendations? Anybody in favor?
You want a motion to approve?
I want a motion, yes.
I'll move to approve the minutes as presented. To approve the minutes.
Second?
Second.
That was Jerry.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, minutes approved.
Thank you.
And let's see, the next item, I might make sure that I know how to pronounce your name. Is it Danica?
Danica, yes.
Okay, Danica, it's over to you to talk about the broadband update, please.
Yeah, so we did get an RFP out this past 2 weeks ago now for an RFP to cover the rest of the town that's currently underserved and unserved. The same day that we put out that RFP, and the funds that we were anticipating on using for that were the funds that were announced by Governor Sununu through the CARES Act. So at the time that we wrote this RFP and we put it out, we weren't totally clear on how to get our hands on those funds, but it turned out to be perfect timing because the same day they put out their own RFP to get vendors for submissions to cover the maximum portion of the state possible. So there are 2 ways now that we have the ability to get coverage for all of those underserved and unserved areas. And the first of that would be a vendor would come to us that we find to be desirable, and we have the ability to move forward with that RFP. We bring it to the state, they would accept it, and then we can get coverage that way. Or someone puts in an RFP at the state level, and we just happen to be encompassed in their whole map of what's covered. So there's 2 ways here that we could be covered. And I said earlier this morning, knock on wood, hopefully one of those 2 comes through for us. But at this time, I have gotten some feedback from about 3 vendors who said what the day that we put out our RFP, that they're looking to respond and that they're planning on sending something back, but we haven't gotten the official submission yet. So fingers crossed. Yeah, Jean.
Who were the 3 that you got responses from?
Consolidated, Comcast, and TCC Skywire.
Was that your question, Jean?
That was part of it, so that's interesting. So Comcast is responding. Okay.
They were responding, yes. So we'll see if I'm crossing my fingers that they'll send us something
Interesting.
though.
So they're not just capitulating to the new rule.
And Danica, what's the third one again?
It was TCC Skywire.
So
Thanks.
my next question, of course, is that I'm still trying to find out, and maybe Karen or whether the really challenging grant requirements were part of the federal requirements or if they were added by the state. Do you happen to know that, the requirement that that the project be complete by December 31st?
Yeah, I believe that's supposed to follow federal requirements. So the same thing goes for you're shaking your head.
I'm shaking my head because I guess it's a little better news that it came from Washington than from our own state, but
yeah,
it's impossible regardless.
Oh, I know. So our RFP for the town of Peterborough that we put out follows the same guidelines that the state used. And in our RFP, we require that whoever the vendor is that sends us their submission also follows those same guidelines. And that's really the only catch. As long as they follow those guidelines, and then we bring it to the state saying, we have the RFP, we have the vendor, can we get it covered by funding? That's the only catch. We have to make sure it follows their guidelines.
I see.
I will offer that, this topic came up at the Selectmen's Advisory Committee last week. We were talking with amongst the different select board members from the towns about it. And the biggest, concern obviously is the December timeline, because it's supposed to be the project completed, right, by the end of the year. So no, and none of the providers really, unless you were ready to put that shovel in the ground day one, is going likely to be able to do that. So, you know, everybody was kind of thinking, well, we're going to need some relief here if we're ever going to be able to use any of this money. So it remains to be seen, right? But I mean, good news is that we did get our RFP out as soon as it was right at the same moment. So of all the other towns, we really were best positioned. Everyone else is still trying to figure out what and if they can do.
Well, that's good. The other concern I've heard from people is the requirement for 100% funding of the bonds, which is, it's a big deal.
Bill, your turn.
Danica, is the RFP a public document, and where can we find it?
It is. So the main place you can find it is on our town's website under its jobs and RFPs on the town's left-hand sidebar. It's also posted in some public databases for RFPs as well, just to try and get it out as many avenues as we possibly can. But the best place to find it is on our town website.
On the website, okay, great.
Great.
My final question on this topic, Danica, is have you talked with our federal delegation at all to see if they're expecting any sort of change of rules or accommodation to reality?
I haven't, but I've been following the
I'll do that if you haven't.
Okay, no, well, I've been trying to follow what people have been submitting as questions to OSI, because there's about 3 pages of questions, 2 different documents, 3 pages each of questions, and they range all over the place, and they all have their answers, but nothing's really touched upon reaching out to the federal delegation.
Yeah, it's sort of a political question, so I'll ask.
Great. Thank you.
There was, in prior meetings, there was some mention of the Dublin RFP. Is there anything that we need to know about Dublin that?
I don't know what their taxpayers are going to think, but everyone who passed it does not qualify for this grant. So,
yeah. So if the towns had already been further along in this process, as Dublin has been and has already passed the bond, they're out of luck on this grant. So the fact that it took us as long as it took us perhaps was the best thing. Almost.
Yeah, the timing was perfect. It was like
timing was perfect. So
Really,
let's go with that.
Okay. Well done. I've just got one question in terms of our membership. I'm not sure who's on the phone.
That's Jerry.
That's Jerry?
Yeah.
So we don't have Andy on?
Andy is not on.
Okay.
Are we ready?
Anything else on the RFP or the broadband?
that's about it for now. Our deadline period is rather short for getting a submission back, but it's about a week longer than what the state's giving their applicants. So I was surprised they only gave their submission deadline is like a 2-week period. Ours is about 3. So we'll see. Things should be coming down the line pretty fast. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yep.
Is there anything that the EDA needs to do in connection with this process?
I don't believe so. Not at this time. But we can loop you in as things come up.
Karen, do you?
Bill has his hand up.
Bill?
Unmute, Bill.
I just want
Can't hear you.
I just want to say thank you. Great job.
Of course.
Yep.
Just for my education, what percentage of the town does not have broadband service?
Well, the way that we mapped it out is by roads that are underserved or unserved completely rather than doing it by houses, because we don't really have that granular of data. There is a map that's available in that that's on the website it'll highlight all of those sections of roads that are currently unserved or underserved. And it's a pretty big portion if you're looking at it just by roads. Of course, if you're looking at it by density of where the town center is, that's all covered, but it's really all those outskirts are not covered at all. So
Mm,
if you're looking at it map wise, it looks like we have a lot to be covered.
Yeah.
Laura, the 25.2, the not quite broadband of our potential DSL coverage is over 90%, but that doesn't now qualify as broadband.
Mhm.
So the last figures I heard on Comcast is that they covered 60%.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
No, I guess we move on.
Okay, moving on to the marketing committee update, Bill and Megan.
We don't have Megan.
Hello, Megan.
Bill, it's you.
Okay, Bill.
So it's me. I don't really have much to report other than the fact that Our Town Together project in collaboration with the Monadnock Ledger transcript has been going well. I've seen personally a good boost in our readership. And although I have not seen any new people being nominated for Our Town Together, I don't know, Karen, have you had any feedback?
No, I think it is probably that, and we talked about this on the marketing committee call, but I think the window for this campaign was quickly closed, enveloped by the Black Lives Matter movement. So, so we had this brief moment where COVID and the bringing our town together opportunity happened, and then as we were getting going, it was eclipsed by the media coverage of Black Lives Matter and what's going on in our community around racism and bias. So that happens. That happens in the world. And so I think at this point, we're just kind of watching to see if there is another opening to push this campaign. But I think right now we have to just see how it goes.
How many submissions were there in the end?
I think it was less than a dozen, Laura. So,
Okay.
yeah, it was
a
a small
significant
number.
but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Humongous.
Yeah, and I didn't see any coming in by way of the ads in the ledger
No,
either. So that didn't generate anything.
they still have something to fill, but they have the month of July to do so.
Correct.
We're having a marketing meeting on Thursday. It's kind of a regular, rotating every other week, and I'll get up to date on exactly what's going on there. If there's
Yeah.
anything significant, I'll email the committee here, and we'll go.
Well,
from
Bill, I would just say too that maybe we want to consider that there may be an opportunity if the paper's willing to hit a pause button with them for the July publication for what they were going to do in July for the ads, and see if we can push that out a bit to just kind of give the current news cycle its opportunity to run, and then see if we can pick it back up. So maybe, would you be willing to talk with Heather?
why don't I'll contact Heather and see what their schedule
Yeah,
is.
I'd rather not spend the money knowing that we have kind of
Yeah,
this very limited audience right now.
we're being saturated with other topics, that's for sure.
Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
It's surprising how it's seemingly difficult it is to get people to nominate others for things. I'm just thinking about the Chamber Awards, and there are years or categories where you have like 1 or 2 nominations, and it takes, in my experience, it's taken a lot of outreach to people to say, hey, is there someone you can nominate? Put some thought into this. So unfortunate. We try to recognize people and.
Well, I think we ran into something here too that made it even more difficult. So
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's been no one selected at this point to actually go into this process. There's been
No, James, we have done. Bill, how many profiles have we done, posts have we done?
So far, only like 4, maybe 5. And there are still names in the hopper, you might say, that they haven't followed up on. So it's really, I mean, we have plenty of names to work from at this point. It's just, as Karen says, I think it's not the best of times to be doing.
Yeah, they can be preparing. I mean, they have reached out to folks that have been nominated, but they've got to get them to respond back so they can do a little bit of an interview. And so there's a process that has to take place. So they have a few to work on, but I think if we can just postpone the posting a little bit, that would be good.
It's a good suggestion.
It's a great initiative. I love it.
Thank you.
I just have one question about the initiative. How do we actually submit profiles? Is that to the marketing committee, or is that to Drum, or who's it to?
You submit the nomination to my email, which is the community email, which is community@peterborough.nh.gov.
But to you?
It comes to me,
It comes to Karen.
and then I send it off to the marketing
Pass it
committee.
along, right.
I
I usually do a little bit of follow-up myself. If the name is not necessarily recognizable, I'll do the initial approach, but for the most part, Drum is following up with that.
And I know I should know this, but where can we see those posts that for the folks who have been profiled?
It's the it's the Peterborough Economic Development Facebook page
Okay, yeah,
where they are.
thank you.
So it's a Facebook.
It's on Facebook right now. Yeah.
Well, it gets put out on both Instagram and Twitter, if you want to go and look for those posts as well. All of the EDA media is on those 3 platforms.
Karen, remind me, that Our Town networking group that you've been on, were they told about these recommendations? I don't remember.
I don't remember either, James, but they have a call Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock. Are you going to be on it?
Yes.
Well, maybe you want to mention it.
Okay, and again, in terms of submission, I tell them submission to that.
Yeah, community@peterborough.nh.gov.
Right.
I'll be on. I'm also planning to be on that call, so I can back you up.
I think you'll need to back me up. Yes.
I'll back you up. Okay.
Woo.
Got your back. Okay.
Okay. Anything else on marketing comm? No. Bill, you're all through?
I am, thank you.
Okay, well, we'll move on to reopening, Karen.
Yeah, so I have been participating on Monday mornings at 10, Taylor Caswell from the State Business and Economic, BEA, the BEA office at the state. He holds half an hour every Monday morning to give an update to the economic development staff around the state to let them know what's happening, which has been really great because we get to ask him questions about particular initiatives. The couple of things just to highlight. I don't know if you've seen, for those who are on Facebook, I don't know if you've seen the recent video. There's 2 videos that have come out of that office, which are, one is focused on more of a staycation kind of stay at home and enjoy the state kind of initiative. The second is one that really highlights our local small businesses and shopping and eating local and that. And I don't know if you've seen it, but Corey Snow from Monadnock Oil and Vinegar is in that video, and Peterborough is in that video. So it's just a 30-second, it's a commercial, right? But it's making its way around Facebook right now. And the messaging is, you know, shop local, stay local, vacation local, you know, because you know, as we are seeing around the country, you know, the COVID numbers in other states are pretty horrendous. And we are down to one case in Peterborough right now that expects to come off the list on Wednesday, which would get us to 0, which is awesome. Really good news. So in order for us to stay that, you know, to keep that level, really there's, again, everybody I've been seeing are wearing masks and following the rules and all of that. What Taylor Caswell says, and he is the commissioner for business in the state, he said that what they're working on with all of the guidance for the business community is not necessarily simplifying all the guidance, but really just trying to get it into some readable, easy document. Because right now, what they've got is just so many pages for every sector. So they're really just going to simplify the document and make that available, make that easy to digest. He also highlighted an announcement that was made.
Oh, come on.
What was that?
That was me. My phone keeps ringing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. He also did highlight a new fund that is becoming available on July 6th, and that's for self-employed persons. So it's the self-fund, and that's out of the CARES Act money. So if you know people who are self-employed businesses, there is an opportunity for them to apply. That'll be on the state Gopher, the reopening site. And also any businesses that have fallen through the cracks somehow, that just have not been able to access funding, there will be a gap fund that the Business Finance Authority is going to be administering, and more details will be coming out about that. And there's also now money for chambers of commerce, and it is based on this regional approach that is going to be, we're waiting for guidance on that as well. But generally speaking, as of today, the 29th, all businesses are open with guidance. Nothing's closed. So that's kind of where we are. As for restaurants in town, our town has given the permits for outdoor seating through the end of October. So all businesses, all restaurants in town can have their outdoor seating, can maintain that outdoor seating through the end of October, through the season, so that they can make up for some of the losses in addition to opening. Jean.
Well, Karen, I just want to thank you for doing the outreach to the state. It's something our town has lacked greatly, and our entire region has lacked. And in actuality, this virtual meeting is making it much easier for Peterborough to gain some visibility there, so it's actually a benefit to us. We used to have Molly Kaler occasionally come down to the meetings, but this is better for you to be there every week or however often it is. So I want to thank you, and I also want to thank you for doing such a great job in making sure that the outdoor seating is available and that the restaurants know it, and working with everyone. I think you've done a great job, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see all that happening. I have one concern, and James, I'm sorry, I don't know if this is later on the agenda, but I've been hearing bad things about Monadnock paper. Does anyone else know anything about this?
No.
In what sense, Jane?
That they are having great difficulties and are sorely in need, unfortunately, of the increase in net metering in order to get their solar facilities in. And the House Republicans are just going to make sure that doesn't happen. So I'm concerned. Okay, I just wondered if anyone had heard anything. I'm going to call their former rep today. Then I've got to call John Manley and find out what's going on.
Bill?
Karen, is there anything that the EDA can be doing at this point to help out that effort? I know that early on in the process, we went around and talked to all the various business owners to make sure that they were going to, that they were aware of things. At what point, I mean, before the pandemic, we had an active program. I know Jerry was very much involved with some of the larger businesses, and I was getting around to talking to the smaller businesses. I don't know that we want to rev up that program once again, or do we want to kind of lay back and do a better assessment this fall?
Well, I will say this. I think that the fact that everything is, that businesses are trying to open now or be open, and all of the relief that has come, I would say we probably want to wait through the summer and just allow businesses to do business. But I think there'll be a point where we want to kind of come back out and do another level of kind of engagement. Jean?
I was just wondering if Jerry could reach out to Monadnock Paper. You have a lot of contacts there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I on or am I muted?
You're on.
We can hear.
Okay, fine. I'm never sure. I'm surprised. I spoke to Bill there, a week or so ago, and he talked about tough times, but nothing sounding dire.
Okay.
His biggest problem that he mentioned was managing employees, because they work 12-hour shifts 4 times a day, 3 times a week, and so forth. And employees are having the usual problems. They're homeschooling and so on and so forth. So I will call him again and say, gee, I heard something through the grapevine, and see what he has to say.
Okay.
On a related question to Bill's and to Karen's comment, I've held off on getting back involved with Franklin Pierce, although they're making plans to open again, although it may change by the minute. Partially because our big push there was to get their parents and so forth to want to come to Peterborough. And when we last spoke, we were a little hesitant about having a flood of people coming into Peterborough. Has that changed?
It hasn't changed.
Okay. Then good. Well, not good, but
Yeah.
then I don't feel like I've failed because I should have reached out. Okay, great.
No, I think, Jerry, that, as with all things, I think over the summer, we should just let things run. And then I think maybe we should pick up the conversation in the fall and see if we want to, how we want to re-engage the employers forum and see what the needs are there.
I wanted to just for
Sorry, Laura, for a second. I just want to identify who's joined the call with the last 4 digits 7192? And you're muted.
That's me, Andy Peterson.
Andy, thank you. Welcome. Okay.
Oh, Andy, you're on.
And Megan, too.
Megan is on.
Megan's here.
Sorry, I'm a little late.
Megan and Andy on. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll put them in the minutes.
Laura?
Yes, I just wanted, just for information, Karen, I think you're probably aware of this, but the hospital and the town are working on a joint branding initiative for Mask Up for a Safe Summer, just as a reminder to individuals and businesses about the importance of masking, social distancing. And we're going to create a poster that businesses can display in their business if they want to, that will just be that reminder for patrons when they come into the store. We'll have that in a couple of different formats, whether depending on how they want to use that signage. And the whole effort is just trying to engage people more as ambassadors, as opposed to beating them over the head with it, and just getting the word out that this is just so important. And we're also, the Rotary Club is holding a Mask Up event on July 10th and 11th, a Friday afternoon from 3 to 7, and Saturday from 10 to 2, where Rotary has 3,000 fabric washable masks. And we're going to be giving those to individuals, and people will drive up and get 2 masks per person in their household. It's not just Peterborough residents, it's anybody. You don't have to show ID or tell where you live. And if this isn't targeted to businesses, because we feel that there's a big need just for individuals to get masks. And if there are leftovers, we can make them available to businesses, but we're hoping that we'll get rid of them just through individuals. So just wanted to let folks be aware of that, and there'll be more coming out on social media and press.
Great.
Karen, just in the last minutes, there's a mention that you were suggesting a small business roundtable.
Yeah, thank you, James. I'll report on that. So there is still ongoing conversation with the Greater Peterborough Chamber of Commerce about their activities and their future. So at this point, I don't have more to report on that, just to say that there's discussion. As you might know, the chamber is currently only has volunteer staff, and it's limited. The board is limited. They've taken pretty hard hit. It was hard before, but it's harder now because of COVID. And so in terms of creating a new initiative, they're not quite there yet, but we are working through to see what might come. So just, I would just say, stay tuned on that. If there's something to report, I will bring it back.
Do you see that at all connected to the Our Town networking
Well,
group?
you know, it's interesting, James. I think the Our Town networking is the one place where businesses are connecting right now in this area. And so it's a great thing to have it. That same kind of activity is happening out of the Greater Keene Chamber. They've done a lot of that. But this Our Town networking was kind of in lieu of what the Greater Peterborough Chamber perhaps could have done. So I'm really happy that it exists.
It was originally part of the chamber, and now it's become independent of the chamber.
Yeah, which is great.
And it was originally in person, but now it's becoming a permanent Zoom.
Well, all good.
Because that gets many more people involved. Bill?
I just want to ask Megan, welcome. Are you plugged into this small business roundtable and that sort of thing?
I am not on that particular Zoom call, but I could be if you wanted me to be a representative of the EDA there.
Well, James is on there already and I'm attending, so I don't know if it's necessary, Megan.
I would prefer to not add something else to the schedule, so, but I would love reports from it, so.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so I think we will, you know, when we do have more information about any kind of business roundtable, we definitely will connect up with Our Town networking, and Megan is with the Women Business Owners group, you know, to just kind of loop in things that are already happening and not duplicate.
Okay, for those of you who don't know what Our Town networking is, it's now a Zoom call that takes place about every 2 weeks, and it has small business or personal business people on a call to talk about how can we help each other build our business, get better in our business, learn more in our business. It's kind of a learning network of how do we do a better job of helping each other in our businesses. Right. And it's led by a guy named Lee Davis, who is the local QuickBook trainer and expert. And he organizes it every 2 weeks on Zoom now. And I think it's permanently going to be on Zoom, because in the past we would have 2 or 3 people meet in person. And it's a heck of a lot easier to get maybe a dozen people on Zoom. Right. One of the comment I have about our startup, I'm just astounded at how well off the nonprofits that I know about are doing. They are really very, very financially secure. So I'm pleased that that's happening, at least with the 4 of them that I know in detail. And that's been very much because of support that's been created by the state and the federal and local governments. and they're beginning to start up. Max Makerspace is starting up with a requirement for people to follow instructions. So they're all beginning to get started.
Yeah.
Anything else on the business?
I'm going to have to leave and go to Concord, but wish you all a good meeting, and you've got extras now, so you have a quorum.
Thank you, Jane.
Good.
Hi, Jane.
All right. Moving to other business. Andy, are you still on?
You need to unmute, Andy.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
My
yeah,
question to you, Andy, is if you have anything to report about the current situation on affordable housing and essentially housing, but affordable housing in particular.
Well, one of the things that is certainly, you know, on my mind on this is that, you know, there's a natural potential for, you know, a personal financial conflict for me because I have a lot of the land listed in town that would be the prime candidates to put affordable housing on. Most pointedly, the lot which is at the end of Evans Flat in Peterborough, which is 8 acres there, which is a prime candidate, and people are looking at it. And the other one is the lot at the end of Mercer Avenue, both of which have, you know, access to town water and sewer and fast internet. You can walk to town. One's the Mercer Avenue one's a 7.7 acre lot, and the one on which is for sale for $435, I believe, thousand or 440 now, and the one at the end of Mercer Avenue, I'm sorry, Evans, with a small house on it, is for sale for $900,000, which is an impediment. But at any rate, those are two of the prime candidates of where housing could go. I mean, I guess there are a couple others that might or might not be bought that you could look at that would be potential candidates as well. You know, but again, I'd be glad to, you know, exempt myself from discussions if anything got serious about either of those two pieces. And I just want to make it clear that I have that conflict because I represent clients who own those parcels. It appears to me that in order to have affordable housing, which to me means single family housing that's you know, new built and you know, affordable in the 200s for, you know, mid 200s to higher 200s with, you know, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-car garage, you know, so forth, or attached housing that you know, might be in the 200 to 250 range. It may be necessary to get a community development block grant if possible, or something like that, to defray some of the you know, upfront cost of developing these lots. That would be one thing, if that's possible. And then the second thing would be you know, a advocacy role for whoever would wish to assume it, but maybe for this group, when going before the boards, to you know, push forward, you know, having you know, approvals granted so that this reasonably could be done. You know, it's not going to be easy, and you know, it's obviously subject to business people being able to do it, but we have some people that are very adept at doing it, and who have experience in doing it, even here locally, that you know, would be interested to do it. I guess we have a vote tomorrow, right, on a zoning amendment. Is that correct?
Not tomorrow, the 14th of July.
14th, okay, but I think considering that's posted, that's going to need to get beyond that vote. It's to throw out the TND one, right?
Yeah, it would take away the whole neighborhood zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
If
So
it passed.
yeah, so if that passes or gets this back into a a sword point thing with the proposers, then that would be one thing. We also have several things about our code that incentivize the retirement type housing is being given a greater density, which is only slightly true with the TND1, but still is a factor. And I think we have to decide if we want to have something that's restricted to older people, and whether that's really the best for our community going forward or not. But it is retirement housing. It can be done to 10 units an acre. That may be a consideration as well. I mean, I don't know where the boards would be at with these things, or whether they'd be able to give density bonuses or whatever. But you do have to work with the land that you have. But again, I don't want to get out over the front of my skis on this thing, because it is the business that I do, and it's I'm very interested, and there are builders who are very interested to provide this kind of housing, if the town would cooperate in its construction. Our regular problem is we get in front of the boards and they make a development. They go through several changes and incarnations, and at the end of the day, you have to charge a lot more for the houses in order to make it work. And so that's the kind of housing that you end up with in some of the projects as they go through the process. So, my hope is that we could, understand that up front and have a conversation where we could actually produce, clean, viable owned housing for people that would be in a price range that, particularly with today's low rates and other, mortgage possibilities, could really open up opportunity to own, housing that would have the type of amenities that people are demanding: close to town, fast internet, town water and sewer, et cetera.
Thank you,
So
Andy.
anyway, sorry.
Karen, in terms of that vote, how is that going to take place?
Well, it's your ballot. Everything is on the ballot. It's on. It was a petition put forward. It's on the ballot. You'll have an opportunity to vote yay or nay. And
it's in person?
You can get an absentee ballot right now. You can, on the clerk's office, I have one sitting on my dining room table right now that I can mail in, which I'm planning to do, because and we're encouraging most people to vote by mail, so that we don't have big crowds at the community center and have to manage that. So that's part of it. I'd also say that there are 3 spots on the planning board that are up for election, and that's going to matter in terms of how the boards react to applications. So we need to pay attention to that for sure.
And in terms of getting a mail vote, we do that through
The clerk's office. So go to the town website, go to the town. It's actually on the homepage of the town website with a link to apply for an absentee ballot. And all you need to do is say it's because of a disability, which is acceptable during the state of emergency for COVID. So you just choose that box and send that in, and you'll get a ballot that you can complete and mail in.
Bill?
So the application process, you can actually do that online. I printed mine out also, Karen. Do we need to mail those in, or you can just do the whole thing online?
Mail them in.
I'll mail them in, okay.
Yeah, to Linda.
Yeah.
You can mail it. You can mail it. You can drop it at the townhouse. You can. I think she needs an original signature, but I think you can perhaps even scan it and email it to her.
Great.
Bill, were you coming in?
I just want to amplify that. Yes, you can scan it and send it to L. at Peterborough Gov or Peterborough NH.gov. And I got my ballot through that. Now, the question I have for Karen is, you can put the application for a ballot in the mail at the townhouse. Where does the ballot itself go?
You mail it with the envelope that it was sent to you. So you got your ballot. You cannot drop unless you hand it to Linda. Hand it to the clerk's office, because that's what I understand. But the instructions are all on the clerk's page. So
well, it's a little bit ambiguous, to be honest with you. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, you should not put it through the slot. It's I think because it is an official ballot, you should mail it.
Will there be a ballot box available at the polling place or town hall on the date of polling?
A full election, a full ballot, yes, the whole community center will be set up.
But can you drop your absentee ballot there?
I believe you can to a certain, we're asking that people not do that because of how many we expect. The point is, if you go to drop it, you're already physically putting yourself there.
Right.
What we're trying to do here is not put yourself there physically, so we don't
That's
have to
correct. That's correct. As the supervisor of the checklist, you really need to be absentee voting before 10 a.m. Have your ballot filled out and mailed or dropped off well before 10, because they start opening ballots usually around 10. So you shouldn't be going and dropping off your absentee ballot, because then you could essentially be voting.
So it's recommended that you mail it.
mail it.
Yes.
Okay, that's very clear now, so I can begin to educate others. I've had that question asked of me several times.
Okay.
And it is unsure. I mean, again, they're still working through a lot of, definitely for September details, but the best thing is to mail it.
But we have the July 14th ballot. So that's got to get done first. And that's the one we got. And we'll get the September primary ballot next. And then we'll get the November election ballot. Okay.
Okay, just any other new business that's not been mentioned? Okay, Andy, just a headline question. How would you describe the demand for housing and affordable housing in our region? If you're still
the demand for housing is very, very strong. And our rental housing stock has been, the rental market is just super tight. I came in the call late. I didn't understand the comment about telling Pierce we don't want people over here or something. I didn't know what that meant. But at any rate, whatever was being indicated, I certainly, feel that our region is drawing a lot of interest, and people are feeling like they can sell the one they have to buy the one they want. They feel like they're not going to have to wait forever to, get a reasonable price and be able to move from one to the other. So a lot of the pent-up demand to do so is being taken advantage of, irrespective of the, the COVID, type of precautions that are being used. It's an opportune time for people to be able to achieve their goals. So they're out and they're doing it, that's the situation we're very lucky in our business, just very, very lucky compared to some others that have really been hamstrung by this thing. We're kind of moving right along.
Well, I know you've been very busy, so thank you for coming on today. I know it's a difficult time for you.
No, sorry I was late. I thank you for saying so, but I, hope to be a better member of this committee than I have been.
Karen?
Yeah,
Yeah, I just would like to clarify the part you only heard half of, Andy, about Franklin Pierce, and that is we had an initiative where we were working to attract the students and their families to town for restaurants and shopping and that, and we've hit the
Yep.
pause button obviously on that, and we were discussing continuing to hold the pause button through the summer just because that made sense in terms of COVID and not overwhelming the restaurants in downtown.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a wild scene. I know the schools are almost, with very few exceptions. The big online school in Manchester is an exception, but most of the higher education institutions are saying they're going to open, and almost have to say that, in order to, have a pathway to viability. But they really don't know quite yet how they're going to do it. I think there's a lot of, important discussions going on with our public schools and how in private schools how this is going to work at the secondary level. So this is time we're figuring out day by day. I was up at the hospital the other day to get a Shingrix shot, and asked the nurse about it. And she said, there's just so much we don't know, and that's really true. So it's I appreciate what everybody's doing, but it's more too shall be revealed.
Right.
That's basically where we are. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Final item. Am I right that the next meeting will be in a month, July 27th?
That is correct, sir.
All right. Can we just put that on the agenda? Next meeting, July 27th at 11 a.m.
Yes. Okay.
All right. I think that's it. We'll be 6 minutes early.
yeah, one last thing, James, I just wanted to say, Andy, I think we've got a song in the making here, something like, if you don't like the house you got, honey, sell the one you have.
Well, I just think it's great that people, and particularly younger people, feel empowered to, make moves at this time and do it and improve their circumstances. That's always what it is. With us, it's very personal. It's one at a time. It's whatever somebody really wants to accomplish, and that's different for one person to another. It's always interesting, but it has been very active, which is great for our community at the moment.
Great, good report.
Well, thank you, everyone, and see you all soon on
To
Zoom.
adjourn, sir. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There you go.
All opposed?
You can stay on by yourself if you're opposed. Good job.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Out of here.